Ben Stanley, how about you? Can you hear us? Okay. We can't hear you if you can hear us, Commissioner. I don't think I heard Ben Stanley either if he tried to. Ben, can you hear us?
I can hear you. This is Ben Stanley, Commissioners.
Okay. How about you, Amelia? Probably something on your end, Commissioner. I'm thinking that might be what she's doing. Looks like she's froze. Yeah. Nope. Can't hear you. Can see you trying. Nope. Still no.
Drop your AirPods.
Yeah.
Drop your AirPods.
Your AirPods? Oh. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, I thought rejoining might fix it.
All right, let me know when you're ready. Oh, we're good to go. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to commission meeting. We typically start this meeting with a volunteer for a prayer, thought, or reading, and then another volunteer to lead us in the pledge. Do we have anybody that would like to? Okay. Prayer? Okay. Do we have anybody that would like to lead us in the pledge? Thank you. Okay.
Robert Moore. Our dear Saint Father, we're so very thankful for all that Thou hast blessed us with. We're grateful for this great nation and this great county that we live in. We're grateful for the opportunities we have because of our forebears. We are grateful also for all those that give of their time and effort to better this area and better this county. Grateful for those that serve in county government and for the great citizens of Utah County. We pray at this time that Thou would bless our commissioners and bless all those that work here, that they may be edified, that they may receive what they need, and that they may be guided. And we pray for also those around us in our county that suffer, that Thou would bless them and help them, and especially bless those that serve in law enforcement and other capacities in our medical fields and other ways, who serve so diligently and so faithfully. And again, we thank Thee for our many blessings, and we say these things in the sacred name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Pledge of Allegiance, Manuel Gonzalez. I pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. First item is our work session update. Sounds like Bryce Armstrong is going to lead us in that update on emergency management on the Provo River levee.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Bryce Armstrong, Community Development. So today we have with us Jamie Huff from the Utah Division of Emergency Management, who's going to give an update to the Commission and everyone on the Provo River levee and Utah Lake flood risk study. This is something that's been ongoing for a number of years, if not decades. But I do believe that the finish line is in sight. The timing kind of worked out as far as, we're right in the middle of quite a significant event and on the reactionary side of the flooding event. And this project kind of is an example of the work that goes into some of the leading edge efforts, the preventative efforts, especially as it relates to mapping flood risks. And so without much further ado, I'll turn it over to Ms. Huff, and our staff will be here to answer any questions that as it relates to unincorporated Utah County.
Perfect. Thanks, Bryce.
Thank you very much. Jamie Huff, Utah Division of Emergency Management. I'm the Risk Map Program Manager. So I produce and help communities update their flood risk information all over the state. So we're embarking on a couple projects here in Utah County that I think you might be interested in. Last time I spoke to the Commission was about 3 years ago, I think it was, during COVID. So I know there's been some transition, so I thought I'd bring this. Yes, like Bryce said, we are kind of getting to the finish line, so we're excited about it. I do have some slides, but I have a lot, and I will try to make this as quick as possible because I can talk about this all day long. But just wanted to give you some updates on that. So flood risk does change over time. It's static. It always is changing. We can see it happening, right before our eyes in some of our communities here this year. So we periodically do have to update our flood risks to make sure that they're up to date and accurate. So planning department, emergency management, developers, residents, everybody knows what their current and accurate flood risk is. Unfortunately, a lot of the studies that have been done in Utah County are very old. They're aged. 1988 was some of the maps that we're currently updating right now. And Provo River is one of them, and Utah Lake was in that same study. So 88, that's, a long 40 years ago, so we're looking at updating that flood risk. I'll give you a quick history of the study. I'm not going to go into too much detail. At the end of the slide presentation that I provided, there's a whole long list of all of the coordination activities that we've developed throughout the life cycle of the project. Yes, it's a very, very long project, but I'll just give you, here you go, give you some background a little bit. on what that is. So again, like I said, the maps are from '88, so they're very old. And we did digitize them in 2020, but there was very little detailed studies or updated studies that were performed within that update. So now we're finishing up the Provo River, which was called Secluded from that area, so we could take a deep dive into that levee and that study information. And then along the timeline of this particular project, the Utah Lake study was requested to be updated too. So this all started in 2007, believe it or not. So yes, it's been a long time coming. But back then, it was requested by Provo City to update the Provo River. And we found that there was what we call a non-accredited levee, which means it was supposed to be certified and added to the FEMA flood insurance rate map as a certified levee. But unfortunately, when we dove back into the study process post 2007, we weren't able to come up with the documentation or anything to show that it was accredited or certified. So because of that, we are updating the FEMA flood risk maps. So there are some requirements that FEMA has in order to show the levee as certified from protecting from the 1% annual chance flood or the 100-year flood. And we couldn't meet those requirements. So we had to revise the study as if it was not a certified levee. So we revised our scope of the study to perform that analysis. We did, after we figured that out, we invited over 400 what we call local levee partnership team members, so a bunch of stakeholders from various offices and entities that were involved in the planning and collaboration of this study. So I want to thank them, specifically Central Utah Water Conservancy District. They were a huge part of our analysis. And then obviously the Utah County staff here were huge as well. So we've had a lot of collaboration over the years, and that's listed in the back. So we want to thank all of their support on this and input, because it was used. For the Provo River.
Central Utah might be a swear word right now, just so you know.
Okay, sorry. I apologize for that, but yeah, no, they were heavily involved in that. There are 3 jurisdictions on the Provo River project. So Utah County, obviously, City of Orem, but the most impact is going to be in Provo City. So luckily, incorporated Provo City. Again, we are updating and revising the maps, the 1% annual chance flood, but unfortunately it is not a certified levee, so we had to map it that way. This effort is not to certify the levee, but to show what the current risk is today as it stands with the information that we have. And then even brand new levees, perfectly maintained, they do have some sort of residual risk. You know, they can breach, they can overtop. There is some residual risk even if they are certified. So wanted to bring attention to that as well. This is a copy or a snapshot of this is west of I-15, an area west of there, of what the flood insurance rate map looks like. FEMA panels them out, just their grids of how they panel maps. So all of Provo River is studied, but this is just one portion of the area west of I-15 that in Provo City, which shows that it was providing protection from that 1% annual chance flood, and it will no longer do that. So as throughout the process, we started the Provo Study Levee Project back in 2014, 2015. And while we were having those conversations, the city of Provo brought up, Provo River does end in Utah Lake. Why don't we update the lake study as well? Which was a great idea. And I forgot to add the date. It's 1988 as well. So all the supporting data from the lake is also 35 plus years old. So very old, very aged, using old topography data, old flow rates and things like that we needed to take into account now, because Jordanelle's been built since then, so we had to take all that into consideration. So in 2018, we got some funding and was able to start the project. And just again, wanted to point out it's not changing the compromise level at all. The compromise level is a different level than a flood risk study. So not changing compromise at all, because that is set forth by legislation. All right, so kind of diving into the quick details of the study, we did collect new topography data through LIDAR, which is light detection and range. It's digital topography data in 2016 around the lake. And then Provo River was 2012, 2013. So again, that's aged since we started the project. But that is the data that we're using. That's the best available data that we have. So for the river study, we did our field survey, which means a ground crew goes out and surveys the river cross sections, bridges, and how much flow can go through those areas. And then we updated the hydrology, so how much water coming and hitting the ground into the system. And then we updated the hydraulics, which is where the water's moving on the ground and how high it gets. So we updated all of those, we've studied all of that information and updated all of those models to have the best and accurate and updated information as we can. And very similar for Utah Lake, we did the same thing. We did what we call a field reconnaissance. We had a survey team go out and survey a bunch of points around the lake, and then updated the hydrology again. And then, but in Utah Lake's case, we have a very different scenario. We have wind and wave actions that happen and occur on the lake. So we had to take that into account in our study as well. So we can get wave heights, 3 feet and greater, and we wanted to make sure that we included that in our analysis as well. And then we just completed what we call the river tie-in. So all the rivers that are flowing into Utah Lake, we tie that into the lake analysis. I don't know where I'm pointing at. There we go. Just a quick snippet of a map. This is how big the lower Provo watershed is, or upper and middle. The study focus is for Provo River is from the mouth of the canyon all the way to Utah Lake. So you can see how big the watershed is that we had to take into account for that. And then this is another quick, this is the uncontrolled watershed that is below Deer Creek Dam. So all of that is considered uncontrolled. Obviously, you have the control structure, Deer Creek, that we had to factor in as well, and Jordanelle upstream. But we also have a lot of uncontrolled flow that flow into Provo River as well. So we had to factor that in. So just again, a quick snippet of the results. Through all the collaboration with our partners, we were able to reduce the flows from what the 1998 study said to what it is today, almost 1,000 cubic feet per second, or CFS, which is great. That lowers the risk, or lowers the amount of flow in there. And then obviously we conducted the study as a non-certified levee. And then Utah Lake, similarly, we took a lot of that same information and all the tributaries, and we were also able to lower the static lake elevation. So if there were no wind and wave, about 1.5 feet based on compromise and control information. But we had to add wind and wave on top of that. So there will be new zones, they're called coastal zones in FEMA's vernacular, but we don't have coasts. So we're calling it a shoreline hazard analysis, which basically means there's winds that can lap up along the shoreline. Or sorry, waves, excuse me. So biggest changes for the Provo River, again, no longer protected by the 1% annual chance flood. There is still some protection, but not to that specific standard. And then most of the changes are west of I-15. So that's good news for Utah County. On the lakeside, we have, again, a new zone to regulate to, which is called a VE zone, so wind and wave or coastal zone. And then we have on the maps there, and I'll show you these in a second, there'll be a new area that shows the limit of moderate wave action. and that's where the break in wave heights occurs. So that'll be helpful for Bryce and his team when he's looking at development in cases that come in that particular area. And then, so I picked out a couple of the areas in Utah County that might be of interest. So in unincorporated area, this for the Provo River example, this would be the area of concern, which is basically at the mouth of the canyon. On the colored areas, the blue and the red and blue areas, those are the new updated study, and you can't see it probably from this map, but underneath it is you might see some stippling or cross-hatching in black, and that's the current effective map. So we're not really seeing much change from the 1998 or 1988 maps to this map in this particular area, so that's good news. The other side, around the lake, there's going to be more changes. So we'll have that new zone, but again, we're seeing a lot of shoreline reduction in the flood zone. Not huge, but just a little bit. But you'll have the best available data. Anyone that comes in can use this study information when it goes effective to develop to and around. So
And
there's-
shoreline reduction, that's a natural effect of nature.
Correct.
More water in the lake or seas impact the shorelines and tend to erode anyway. It's just a matter
Right.
of how much. We just don't know because abundance of water or a lack of water will determine that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to keep them updated. So, if we change the control, like how much water is in there, we would probably need to update the maps too to reflect that as well. So,
Right. Okay.
Yep. Okay, so this is the larger picture of the maps. I'm not going to dive into this too quickly, and I'll tell you where to find these in a second. But again, if you see black cross-hatching, and that's the current flood risk or what is being regulated to today. And again, the darker colored areas, blues, golds, and reds, those are the new. So if you see black on the outside, that means it's reducing the risk. So a good portion, because those flows were reduced, a lot of the floodplain did reduce as well. So that's good news upstream. We move further downstream, it's a little different story. So we get closer to I-15, then it kind of spreads out a little bit. And I'll show one more map. So this is the area that is the biggest change. Again, west of I-15, and the river impacts are, if you, wish I had a pointer, but it's like right in the center of your screen is kind of where the river impacts stop and the lake impacts begin. And then again, it's just another snapshot of what that black with the triangles is, that limit of moderate wave action. So you could experience some waves up to that point that are 1.5 foot or greater. Okay, so quickly, the timeline for the study, we do still have some time left. So we are done with the river tie-ins. We just completed that last month or in April. And we're working on doing some public outreach because there's a lot of change in Provo. We're going to do some targeted outreach to Provo City. And then while we are also doing that, we are going to move to a preliminary flood insurance rate map, which is basically FEMA's draft flood maps. We'll release those probably in the fall of this year or later fall. And then with that also comes more public meetings and a due process for those maps. So someone could appeal and comment on them, and we'll be coming out and doing some public meetings around that. Probably, I would say late this year, maybe into early next year. We'll probably do some public meetings alongside Bryce and his team. And then after that, I would say we have about 18 months until the maps go into effect. Because of the due process, and then there's also a 6-month adoption period once we say we're not making any more changes. It's called the letter of final determination. And we'll have about, from time of their preliminary till they go effective is about 18 months. So we do still have some time till these go into effect. So with all of the changes that are happening on Provo River, we thought we would do extra outreach. So our team and we Provo Resilience Collaborative is what we're calling it. Is we have a team of folks that are developing materials, fact sheets. We have a project website, which I'll give that to you, I think, in the next slide or two, of where to find that. And then we also have a video of, your Provo River levee and how a great feature it is and what it is. And then, again, we're also going to do some outreach and open houses and social media posts alongside the city and the county and things like that. We'll also have a press release that we're going to send out to notify, the press of these changes as well. So it says, that bullet says it's not live, but it is live. So anyone can feel free to go to that website, and I can send it to Bryce and he can send it out or link it on your website. That's completely fine. But all of the resources for our outreach materials and if you want to dive into the details of the study, we have everything up there on that website. When we did meetings with our stakeholders and reports and draft maps, all of that's up on that project website. So feel free to educate your residents on that if they'd like to go see that. But everything's up there. And then that's our study team contact information. So that is in your slide deck too. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. And Bryce and his team have been very helpful during this project, and hope that continues. So the rest of the remaining slides are that long timeline. So feel free to look at that at your leisure. So any questions?
Just a comment that the flooding was an issue. What year was that? 2010 in Spanish Fork?
11?
It was 11?
Yep.
I remember we were getting ready to sandbag, and it turned out we didn't have to. It crest, I think, less than a foot before it hit the plains, and then it started to drop. And so this time we have a little bit more danger, it seems, in some more lower-lying areas than now. But this is a very real issue, and we tend to forget just because years pass and it's dry, we don't get the rain we've had or snow, and so this is still important to have reminded. So my part, thank you.
Any questions? Commissioner Gardner?
Nope, I don't have any. Thank you so much for the presentation. Very timely.
The only one I have is, how do you notify if a new homeowner or a homeowner is new in the flood zone and they find out that they've got to have flood insurance because they have a mortgage? And
yeah, there can be a couple ways. We are hoping, we rely on our local officials to help us with that. We don't have good or up-to-date parcel information, and there's also public identifiable or private identifiable information, PII, that I don't want to keep. So I'm probably going to ask Bryce and his team to help me out with notifications. But when it gets closer and when these maps actually go into effect, they will get noticed by their lender if they have a mortgage.
Yeah.
If they don't have a mortgage but find themselves in the floodplain, we do still really highly encourage flood insurance because that's really the only financial protection and to recover from a flood, but not required, but it's highly encouraged.
okay, thanks, Jamie.
Yep, you bet. And we'll be out there in the public, so
Okay,
have people come to our meetings.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, now we will build our consent agenda. Items 1 through 10, we'll hold item 3.
I have no others on that set.
Do you have any others, Commissioner Gardner?
I do not.
Okay, 11 through 20.
I have none.
Okay, Commissioner
Only-
I
Gardner?
have none.
Number 14 says tobacco contract, and I was worried that we were buying cigarettes for everybody in the county, and I made sure that's not the fact, so I
No,
just,
you
anyway.
clarified
No,
with the health
yeah,
department.
that's-
Good
That's
boy.
not the fact.
Okay. 21 through 30.
I have none.
None for me either.
I had none.
Okay. 31 to 40.
I have none.
I had none.
Okay. And then 41, 42, we'll hold and have a quick discussion about.
Unless we don't,
Unless you just want to insert the
just
names.
mention that what we have, 41, we have Anthony Canto and Glenn Tanner,
Okay.
who are employees of the county, to be part of that district board of trustees. And then 42, we have you, Commissioner Brandon Gordon, as a member of that same board. That's what's being proposed, and I don't have any concerns about that,
Okay. Well,
at least not yet.
you good with that, Commissioner Gardner?
I am.
Okay. Well, we'll do that then. Okay. And then any others between 41 and 50?
None,
No, I think 43 we have Bert Garfield, correct?
Correct.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I have no others.
Okay, then 51 through 54.
I went through 52, and I'm happy with
I
what's
saw no issues.
Okay. Oh,
Just a quick comment. My understanding is 51 was being requested to strike.
strike.
Yeah.
strike 51.
That's correct, Commissioners. It's Ben Stanley from representing the assessor's office. They want 51 struck.
Okay.
More negotiations.
Actually, it's duplicative of an existing agreement, so it's not necessary.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Duplicate.
Okay, striking 51, and it's my understanding that we're going to hold 55, 56, and strike 57. Do we have any litigation?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. We'll strike 57 and 58 then.
And just to confirm, is HR here?
Brandon's here, and then,
Brandon, basically 53, we're still under the anticipated amount that we would need, correct, with that staff increase, or, excuse me, payroll increase?
yeah, we received an email earlier today that was the case.
I missed
from
that
Ralph.
one. Okay.
Yep,
I'm
Ralph
happy
did
with
send
that.
that email with
I'm
that
good
was the
with- I'm
case.
good with that then.
Okay. Okay, Alice.
Okay, I have us holding regular agenda items number 3. And we're approving on consent 41 with Anthony Canto and Glenn Tanner, 42 with Brandon Gordon, and 43 with Bert Garfield, striking 51. And then as far as closed meetings, we're going to hold as stated 55 and 56, and striking 57 and 58.
Terrific. Okay. So item number 3. Just want to thank all those that have helped all of us with this process for months. And so I know some UTA folks and MAG folks are here. We've had a lot of questions over those months. And so really appreciate all the help from everyone and all the data and everything. So I've asked Paul if he would kind of give us a synopsis for the 5th, sort of the process, what exactly.
And Commissioner,
What
just so you know, Paul Jones will be the new Civil Division Chief effective next Tuesday in the County Attorney's Office. So,
Yes, congratulations on that, Paul. And
Thank you.
for those that don't know, it's Rob's last meeting. He'll be leaving us Friday. Be sorely missed. Hence the swear word of Central Utah Valley. That's where he's going to be employed. If you need to go throw darts at him.
I'd like to ask, if I may, how many are here to comment on Agenda 3?
Yeah.
1, 2,
Okay.
okay, 3.
That's great. We'll have public comment during this item. So thank you.
So we have 3, okay.
Great. Well, if you have UTA people here and MAG people here, you might have people who are a lot more qualified to speak on the topic than I
Okay.
am. But I can get us started.
Okay.
Agenda item number 3 is basically an ordinance to implement a new section into our Utah County Code, which would be implementing the sales and use tax that's authorized in Utah Code Chapter 22, Title 59, Chapter 12, Section 2220. Calling it different names. Some people are calling it the fifth, but it is a 1/5 of a cent sales tax that would be used to fund highways or a system of public transit. And so we as a county have implemented 4 prior sales and use taxes that go to support transportation infrastructure. Those have been of different amounts, mostly I think a quarter amount. This is a 1/5 amount, so it's the 5th sales and use tax, and the amount in this case is a 1/5 cent. Being an attorney, the math can really kind of mess with my mind. You have percentages of decimals, but we can try to work through it a little bit here. Of the 5th cent, half of that is slated to go to the public transit district. A quarter of that is slated to go to the cities, and the other quarter of that is slated to go to counties. But in the first 3 years, the distribution is augmented. During the first 3 years, the way I read it, the portion that is the half portion that is slated to go to the public transit district would go to the county for the first 3 years, and then it would default into that breakdown that I mentioned earlier. I think that's a quick intro. But if you have any questions, we can try to answer them, or we can bring in
Yeah, I'm sure that
MAG
MAG and
or
UTA can
but,
help fill in any blanks.
That's basically, maybe I will just, basically again, the uses are basically to go to transportation infrastructure, roads, public transit.
Has to be used for that. Correct. Okay. Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
Commissioners, Rob Moore here again. So also SB 260 from this last legislature modified the statute a little bit. And it used to have a deadline of June 30th of this year to impose this. It's not, that deadline's been removed, but that was part of the bill. Also, my understanding is you can't use this money to really augment your general fund. That's not what you're.
No, specifically to roads, and we can't use it for anything else.
Yeah, correct. Now, and I understand in my discussion with legislators is that their view, at least the ones I've talked with, is that Utah County needs to impose this because it impacts the legislatures. If the Utah County doesn't have skin in the game, is what they told me, then they're not likely to try to funnel money down here if we're not willing to pony up some money on our own. And that was kind of the impression I got when the legislators I've talked to. So you know.
Thank you. And then time frame was kind of something that I was also would be. There's a 30-day public comment period, or am I aware of that? Or
No, there's no public comment period, but there is. The time frame is
Filing period, recording period is 30 days.
so this ordinance would go into effect, and then then the county would give the state tax commission notice that we've implemented the tax, and there's a little formula that would be followed to determine when the tax rate will go into effect. And it's not a comment period, but it's a notice period to allow the tax commission to notify all the sellers of the tangible goods that the tax needs to be imposed. And sorry, I can look it up, but it's something like the first day of the first quarter, 90 days after the county implements.
Okay.
Right, and then it'd be 6 months before you
60
actually
days
see the
after?
revenue.
Did I get that close?
So roughly end of December, January, if we were to do it today.
Yeah. And to be clear, it's not on food.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's not on.
Not on groceries.
Not on
So
groceries.
if you
Not on
go to
groceries.
a drive-through, that would be taxed, yes.
Correct. Yeah.
Restaurant
Fast food.
type thing.
Not on
Yes.
food.
Materials,
ingredients.
clothing, whatever.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Paul.
I can clarify that schedule if you'd like. But.
Perfect. Okay. we had a couple of hands pop up, so why don't we take public comment? We typically do that for a couple of minutes. There's some of you that are here to speak to this, and then I'm sure there might be some questions that we might be able to address with that. Just have to tell us who you are, and some of us know already.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Lenise Davenport, Planning and Policy Director with the Mountain Land Association of Governments, or MAG. MAG is the region's metropolitan planning organization. We developed the Long Range Regional Transportation Plan, or RTP, that looks out to the year 2050. So the local option transportation sales taxes are important. They're an important element to the financial assumptions that we plan for when looking at our transportation system in our region in Utah County. We realize that Utah County has rapid and significant population growth, and therefore we're having a really hard time with our transportation network, our transportation infrastructure keeping up with that rapid population growth. Any and all funding that we can get for transportation infrastructure, we of course are supportive for, and we just wanted to spend just a minute thanking you, Commissioners, for your thoughtful leadership on this. We absolutely strongly urge and support Utah County Commission to impose this local option transportation sales tax. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions in addition if there's any additional questions on this sales tax.
We might lean on you. Thanks, Lenise.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. They look like they're going to be really good while you're away.
Hi. So my name's Brittany Lindsay. I am a citizen in Cedar Hills. I've been to a few of these meetings over the past few years, and all my children have as well. They're learning a lot about taxes and a lot about how government works. And as a citizen, I think that anytime a tax is to be imposed upon the people, that it should actually be put to a vote of the people, especially if it's going to be affecting our families. I know that a fifth of a cent seems so small, but I grew up in Northern California, and so I see how these taxes perpetuate and become a huge issue. They tax everything there, and we don't have that issue here in Utah County yet. But yet doesn't mean anything to me because I've seen it unfold in so many places, even in Salt Lake County. And we are here talking about scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and the legislature where they're saying they're not going to funnel money down if we aren't doing our part in giving taxes, but we do give taxes. And when we're talking about these tax increases, it shouldn't just be up to the corporations, it shouldn't just be up to the legislator, it should be up to the people. And so that is my public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brittany. Anyone else? Yes, please.
Hello. Yes, my name's Thomas Cook, and I just wanted to piggyback off of that. As far as it should be up to the public to vote, especially when we look at the 2023 budget for UTA, 79% is done by tax-funded individuals. There's a $693.7 million tax revenue coming in. 79% of that is coming from us. So if we're going to get taxed more and add on to that 79% of the $693 million, we should at least have some sort of say.
Thank you, Thomas.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Manuel Gonzalez, and I have some photographs that I took. I'm a resident of Payson, and I have a very big concern about the underpass. Can I give these pictures for you guys to look at?
Yeah. Thank you. I know this well.
Do you?
Yes.
So I wrote a little letter to myself to tell the commissioners. Dear Utah County Commission.
As you read that, can you clarify for me which of the underpasses? I've been in the Payson area a lot, so if you explain to me which one, since I can't see the photos.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Lydia. So the underpass is heavily tagged. There's a lot of graffiti there, and
Okay.
And I live at the Arrowhead track in Payson, And that community now consists of 3 communities. There's the Arrowhead built by Richmond American Homes. There's also another community of homes across from the track. And then there's another community of apartments and leases. And then there's another community that's still being built. So there's actually 4 communities now. And that the road that you take off of exit 250, when you go to that rural road and you go under that underpass, the road is not being maintained. They're just filling the potholes. Okay, they're just filling the potholes, and then 2 months later, the potholes are back again. The underpass.
Okay, I think I know right where you're talking about.
The entrance of the underpass, the rural road is really not to code. Then when you exit the underpass, it's not to code. The problem with that is that when you enter the underpass, that is county rural road. But when you exit the county, depending upon what direction you're coming. So if you're coming south and you exit the underpass, then that part belongs to Salem. So I have to present this to Salem as well because of the road. But I've lived, like I said, and my request is to bring this to the commissioner's attention by offering suggestions in the way of maybe posting some signs in the way of warning those that tagging property is an illegal crime. Cameras could also help by warning those that are being monitored, that they're being monitored. I'm from California, and I moved here 11 months ago, and you guys probably know Los Angeles is the tagging capital of the world, right? So when I came to Utah, I was just really surprised to see that, especially living in the Payson community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we get to keep these pictures?
Yes, you
Can I
do.
share those with some of the staff?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Okay.
I'd like to touch on a couple things.
Sure. Go ahead, Commissioner.
In my visits with, as we've heard from UTA, before you came on, but started in August, came to us separately and talked to us about this possibility. It was a statute that was created in 2018, and as I visit with some of our state reps, the idea was that for larger counties in particular, that they need to have some, as it was already said, some skin in the game, that we produce our own funding in addition to what we receive from the state for these roads. And that was one of the big items that came out. The problem is that we've been hit with enormous inflation rates, and it's unprecedented in some cases. And asphalt and gravel has been touched on pretty hard. It's 35% more now than it was in the past 3 to 5 years. And on top of that, we are about 40% behind, excuse me, where we should be on our road updates. And maybe this overpass might be one of those in Payson. I'll have to show that to Public Works. The problem is because the inflation has hit the gravel and asphalt, it's hit our course, as everyone else, the gasoline prices are now the low end roughly about $4.20 a gallon, I think it is. And so that affects our ability to take care of the roads in addition, that additional cost. We have, because we fall behind our roads, if we don't hit it on a certain schedule every 5 to 7 years, if we wait, most mayors know this, if we wait another 2 to 3, 4 years beyond that, it will cost us 3 to 4, 5 times more to do the same repairs if we'd done it like 2 or 3 years before. And that was the other part. And many of the mayors, not all of them responded, have said that they support this idea. A couple of them said they don't. But the idea here is that for the first 3 years, that single penny will be cut into 3 parts. A quarter will go to cities, generating roughly $6 to $7 million for all cities, be spread out on a per capita basis. The other quarter would go to Utah County only, and again, the cities would be only Utah County cities. The half penny would go to UTA for just the first 3 years, so the end of 26, if we were to pass it today. And that would be used for, and I've talked to UTA reps on this, that we can negotiate how that money is used for specific projects that we see a need. Like, for example, Lehigh Main Street was a really hard thing to work through until we got the Pioneer Parkway built. How do we expand that so allow people to get through there in order to get to the west side of the county? That was a big issue, but we've got a couple places like that, and they're open to the idea that maybe using that half penny or portions of that penny toward projects like that during these next 3 years. At the end of the 3 years, what would happen, that half penny would be split in two. It would remain with UTA, Utah Transit Authority, for Utah County specific road needs. The other quarter, the fourth part of that penny, would go to transportation infrastructure funding for future plans such as rail that's expanding, planned on to go into Payson. They're talking now to do environmental studies to get all the way into and past Santaquin because the growth of population is so rapid. When I arrived here and retired from the Marine Corps, we came back to Utah in 2006. The 3 lanes both ways was very large compared to what it was when I came here as a student in '79. And it was 2 lanes each way and a very large grass median in between. But that freeway, as all of us have seen, has expanded dramatically. And you see buildings right up against the freeway. And so we have to look at alternate means for transportation for no other reason than the loss of time to get from point A to B and then to help reduce the air pollution issues that we see. The other thought was if this were to pass, then the cities would get that quarter penny. Some cities, not very much, grant that much. There was a website, I'll need to post that separately, but it has a breakdown on 2022 projections, what cities might get. And some would get very large, but it's based on all per capita from that money. And so the inflation, again, has been the biggest point for me on this whole discussion. The price of eggs, as everyone knows, went up through the roof. It's supposedly coming back down again. But gasoline tends to go up and doesn't come all the way back down as it was. It was $1.30 something before 2020, I think. And we don't know if it's going to drop below that. But asphalt, for example, tends not to drop very much. Once it hits a high, it comes down, but it then generally levels out for the new price structure. So given all of that, we're behind on the road upgrades. We have 35% increase on our materials. Gasoline is out through the roof. This is something, again, I've been kicking around since August, and I've talked to several people, and it's just a matter of, I don't like it. It's just a matter of, it seems like we have to in order to pay for the bills. And so if that makes sense. Your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts, I'm glad you touched on gas, and my experience in Spanish Fork was the gas tax, what generates roughly $1 million for our community where I live a year to use on roads, and our city spends almost double that. So that money's coming from somewhere else. On 2022 estimates, this would generate almost a little more than $500,000, to help Spanish Fork, a city like Spanish Fork in these estimates, and so it was constantly, an issue, as a city leader, like how do we fix the roads and infrastructure if the gas tax, which is changing drastically, and so, for me, that was the big thing also with UTA and what they will do. It has to be used in Utah County, right, for UTA improvements. That's huge. I also love that it's, I often think about our elderly that are on fixed income. This doesn't apply when they get their groceries. We constantly, I know that's often on both of you commissioners' minds, how we try not to impact them. And it feels like when we're in cities, we constantly are it's easy just to raise property taxes. And so for that, I liked when we implemented a RAP tax. It had to be used for recreation, arts, and parks. And it was a vote, and the city unanimously, it was a huge vote in favor of that. And because it's more of a use tax, and I think that's what I like about it. So, Commissioner Gardner, what do you have thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. So I think my thoughts on this, I tend to, in my core, hate all taxation. But if we are going to levy a tax, I think it's important that we do a few things. Number one is it should be levied at the most local level that we can. And I appreciate that the legislature, instead of just having the legislature enact a statewide tax that affects all communities the same, regardless of what their needs are, I appreciate that they took the time this year to change the implementation of this so that it would do a couple of things. Number one is that the tax would be implemented at a local community level. And that way, counties that aren't growing at a rapid rate and aren't falling behind with their infrastructure, they don't need to implement a tax like this. But cities and counties like Utah County, where we have 25% of the state's growth, it would give us the ability to invest in our future and get the infrastructure that we need to be able to prepare for that growth and to catch up from the growth in the past that we haven't had the resources to do so. So I do appreciate that this is a local tax. I also appreciate that it's a specific tax, so that it's not something that like we could enact saying we were going to put it into roads and transit and then turn around and use it for pet projects. I like that it's specific, so that if we say this is for roads and transit, it's only for roads and transit, and that it's legally tied that way. I think that makes it more palatable as well. But the third aspect of it that I really appreciate the legislature doing is that the way they changed it, that this doesn't just go to UTA, for example. We get local control of that. The first 3 years, it has to stay within our district, but we get to control where in our district that goes. And then after that, it goes to our area. On top of that, they also put a percentage of this towards the cities, so that based off of population, meaning if a city is growing, they're going to get a higher percentage of it, and because they have more infrastructure needs that they need. And so once again, this is putting the control for this at the most local level, which is, I think, the best way that government can be run. So while in general, I absolutely abhor increases in taxes in general, I do appreciate that if we have to pay the bills, that this is a way to do it locally, even hyper-locally, splitting it between the county and the city, and then it's for a specific purpose that can't be, we can't do a bait and switch. And so I do appreciate those things. And I do recognize that the legislature, as we go to them and try to plead with them for more of the state's transportation money, I know people have heard me quote this many times, but we have 22% of the state's population, 25% of the state's growth, and we're only getting 10% of the state's funding for roads. And the legislature did indicate to us that if we want them to come to the table to give us more of that statewide roads funding that our population really justifies, one of the reasons they've been unwilling to do that in the past is because Utah County has not stepped up to say, hey, we're willing to help fund this. And maybe Lanice and Mag can speak to this, but it's really, to me, quite disturbing how many of our high priority projects for transportation are just simply not funded. We have the fastest growing county in the state by far, and our projects that not only did we identify as high priority, but even UDOT identified as high priority, they don't have funding. And this would be a mechanism for us to fund those high priority projects and prepare our county for growth at a local level. So I do appreciate that we have local control of this money and that it's locally imposed and that it gets split between the cities and the county.
Thank you. Okay.
So if this were to pass, then what we're looking at, for every $5 spent on some sales item, it'd be about a penny additional sales tax. For every $50 would be 10 cents. Every $500 would be $1, and every 5,000 it would be $10. Did I get my math right, Counselor?
You're asking the wrong guy.
Yeah.
You're legal, you know everything.
Our auditor's nodding his head.
Yeah, we got to get Rod involved here. Get the 10 key out. Just a couple comments. Yeah, the effective date of the tax would be 90. It'd be the first. 1 second here. It'd be the. It'll take effect on the first day of the calendar quarter after a 90-day period that begins on the date that the tax commission receives notice. So I think that's October 1st. Secondly, as to the city distribution, it is half based on population and half based on where transactions are conducted. Just so, so if more transactions are conducted in, that's where the city portion will be configured out based on those two factors.
Yeah, and several mayors expressed support for it. Not all of them. I haven't spoken to all of them, but most is the wrong word. Many of the mayors I spoke to said yes. A couple said no to this.
Okay. Anything else from you, Commissioner Gardner? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt and approve agenda number 3.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, that passes 3-0. Okay, we will now move into our closed session items. Thanks, everyone, for being here.
Thank you.
Goodbye.